and I've seen it where vendors have like tried to go around the franchisor and just hit the franchisees directly, and it always doesn't end well.
When you're trying to grow revenue across this portfolio, is it right to think about kind of like two different levers you have?
We always say there's three. Number one is helping your existing franchisees dominate their local market. Second focus is putting new successful dots on the map.
Or you can add more brands to the portfolio.
So we try to evaluate things based on what's easy versus what's impactful. Like 99% of the time, one of the first systems to be transitioned was payroll onto one system. I always separate integration into two things, right? There's like the nuts and bolts integration, which is like how we're gonna run the company. And then there's the value creation integration, which is like how are we gonna help our franchisees succeed? Rich franchisees or happy franchisees?
Yes, that's very true. What exactly were you doing when you were at Authority Brands?
Yeah, so what I was doing there, it started off, I joined in 21 from the Apax team. So when I was at Apax, they were my portfolio company. They didn't have a corporate development team at the time, so I was effectively their in-sourced corporate development team.
Interesting.
And I did 3 acquisitions there with them, and then a very large debt securitization, which is a type of financing for largely franchise-backed companies, and then a few other special projects.
So you were picking what new brands to add to the portfolio?
Yeah. When I started that at Apax, and then continued that on at Authority Brands. So at Authority Brands, when I transitioned, I was in a chief of staff role, and that was largely in 3 different buckets. Built up the corporate development team in-house. Number 2 was like CEO, CFO support, so just general strategy and board decks and things like that.
Yeah.
And then the last bucket was debt and equity investor relations.
And when they're trying to when you're trying to grow revenue across this portfolio, is it right to think about kind of like 2 different levers you have? You can just expand the number of locations within a brand, or you can add more brands to the portfolio?
Or the one other one is to help your current franchisees dominate.
Okay.
So we always say there's three levers, and it starts more, micro and goes macro. So micro, number 1 is helping your existing franchisees dominate their local market.
Yep.
So whether that's better marketing, new products or services that they're putting out, just general operating rigor to help them beat out their competitors.
Yep.
That is always our first focus. Second focus is putting new successful dots on the map. So adding new franchisees within a system. So if we didn't have a franchise owner in Albuquerque, New Mexico, we'd sell another Albuquerque franchisee.
And would that be often to a franchisee that's already in one of your other brands? Was it often like outside of the system?
It ranged, but it's mostly brand new franchisees.
Interesting.
So the 3 different buckets there. The first bucket, which is most common, is brand new franchisees who have never, in some cases, never run a business before. They just want to, get into business and they want to do something with themselves, and we're an accessible place for them. The second group is people that already own within the existing brand and are looking to expand their territory. Usually, it's within the same geographic area. So, like they own, South Atlanta, and they're looking to buy like Southeast Atlanta. Not always though. Sometimes they own Denver and they're looking to buy Salt Lake City. And then the last group are people that are in other brands that want to expand into a new brand in their geography. So that was most common for us in our trades brands, HVAC, plumbing, electrical, where someone might own an HVAC company in Boston and they say, I want to now tack on a plumbing company to my HVAC company, and they would buy the plumbing franchise in the same territory as their HVAC franchise.
And that's actually something I was curious about. Are these owners typically like traditional business people, or are they from the trade itself? Because in the restaurant space, you often see it's a very like financially driven owner, and that's why they're able to go cross brands. It's not that they have a particular affinity to like McDonald's versus Taco Bell. So you have so much cross brand in those verticals. But how does it work for home services?
It ranges based on the type of service. Mostly, it's an entrepreneur. It's like someone who has no background in the service and they're looking to learn it and just go and run a successful business. Yeah. Occasionally, depending on the brand, it would be more of like the actual home services person. The best examples in the trades, HVAC, plumbing, electrical. You, David, you could go start an HVAC company today, but in your training to start that HVAC company, you're not gonna learn how to actually install an HVAC. Yeah. So your first hire would have to be a really capable operations person that like understands how to do the work
and has the license even.
And the license,
like the license
exactly.
For the company.
You can rent one, but yes, it ideally has the license, knows the skills, and that's your first hire. As opposed to if you started a pool cleaning company, the the pool cleaning training that you go through, the first week is like how to run a business, and the second week is literally how to clean pools.
Yeah.
Like it's not that hard. Now, you wouldn't be able to, David, you wouldn't be able to like dig and put in a new pool tomorrow. That takes some experience, but to at least start like the cleaning, the maintenance, that's not that hard for you to at least have, some proficiency on, such that you could either do it, or maybe not you, David, but maybe someone a little bit more technologically or tech savvy.
You should see when we tried to put up the TV in the office. There's like 50 holes behind it.
That's really funny. So, it's mostly entrepreneurs.
Okay, interesting. So one kind of like question, moving on to like the tech side of these businesses, which you kind of mentioned, the part of the thesis was how do we have like shared services to some extent for these businesses? And that goes across many areas, but just like starting with technology, how does that actually play out across the portfolio? Do you have single vendors for different like field service management platforms, et cetera? Is it kind of brand by brand? Walk me through that.
Yeah, I'll tell you the overarching commentary is that this is an ongoing challenge for any multi-branded franchisor. Because they are trying to get a certain level of unification while also trying to have the brands operate in like the best of breed approach. And there's this constant push and pull on how to do it. So, for example, there were some things that, were like a non-negotiable had to be on. For example, we were audited, right? So every brand had to be on NetSuite.
Okay.
We build everything on NetSuite, for us at least, we were on NetSuite. We build everything on NetSuite because that was our financial ERP, and that was one of the first things to transition because we were audited and all of our financials had to be uniform in NetSuite. Or our HR system, that was another one, right? We paid everyone on one system. Like 99% of the time, one of the first systems to be transitioned was payroll onto one system.
That's actually interesting because I thought there were certain things in HR that you couldn't mandate. Maybe it was hiring, maybe it was other areas where it's like it kind of has to be in control of the franchisee.
Let me clarify. So when I'm saying HR systems, I mean for the franchisor employees. You're right on the franchisee employees. There's joint employment regulations you got to be aware of. None of those NetSuite or HR systems, that's purely speaking about like the franchisor business level. I always separate integration to two things, right? There's like the nuts and bolts integration, which is like how we're going to run the company. And then there's the value creation integration, which is like how are we going to help our franchisees succeed. So the first two I mentioned, HR and financial ERP, that's more on the nuts and bolts side. Like we have to do these to like have this company look like it's part of ours. Yeah,
makes sense.
One of the ones that is probably top of mind for folks is like the actual franchisee ERP system.
Yeah.
Like the Service Titans or the some of the other ones, Jobber or Hesco Pro, all those. That one's really tough because you have your franchisees that are used to operating their business with a software already.
Yeah.
Like most of the time they use something. And to make a change, it requires not only effort on your side to like, your side being the franchisor side, to pick a vendor, to vet the vendor, to then like craft the contract and make, the template of the franchise system how you want it to be. And then you got to do this broad rollout and have all your franchisees switch their processes and procedures and data into another software vendor. And it's a big job. Like that is not something you want to do frequently.
Yeah, and it sounds like there's multiple layers too, because like the franchisees are going to have opinions. Then maybe the brand itself, like the franchisor, has opinions. Yes. And then there's kind of like the platform or holding company across, which to some extent might want consistency across brands, but also if brands are in very different areas, like what you need out of a tech platform might be different. Like
exactly.
It gets very specialized, like a skimmer and pool services versus like a Service Titan traditionally in HVAC, electrical, etc.
It was always a push and pull that we had on that because we would have things like, one of our pool businesses, right? We had Service Titan for our HVAC plumbing electrical business. And then we used, I don't remember which one we used for our pool business, but it was Skimmer or one of those ones.
Yeah.
And there was always this dialogue to say, well, from a franchisor perspective, it would be way easier if everyone was on one platform. But from a franchisee perspective, there's certain aspects of a platform that are well suited to that industry, and it would disrupt the franchisee's processes.
And maybe to push, why is it better for the franchisor? Is it because Service Titan integrates better with like NetSuite and then like it's just easier to...
Yeah, it's easier from, Service Titan is a good example, right? On Service Titan, it's easy to just, they have a really good franchisor like module where you can get reporting from all across. and permissioning that you can set from like a franchisor lens, which is they're getting better at it as well too. So everything from data to financials to monitoring franchisees to it's like one source of truth. And then there's another layer on it, which is we haven't talked about this yet, but when you go to like the cross sell, which is a huge thing in home services that I don't think anyone has really cracked yet.
What do you mean by that, cross sell?
Cross sell being like, I am a customer for an HVAC company. How do I also become a customer for your mosquitoes company?
Oh, interesting.
That's like the layer that all these home services companies are trying to crack, and it hasn't happened yet. One of the reasons it hasn't happened, I mean, it has a little bit, but it hasn't been like, it hasn't been like Marriott's a good example, right? Marriott, everyone knows all their brands. Everyone knows the parent company, everyone knows all their brands.
You have a loyalty program across
it.
Brands.
Yeah, exactly. You stay at a Westin, you're probably going to stay at a Marriott the next night. I know I do that.
Yeah.
Home service is very different. If you're I'll pick on one of our competitors. If you're a Mr. Mr. Rooter customer, you may not even know that AirServe is owned by the same company. You might have no idea. So it's been very hard to crack it because of kind of the patchwork, really localized level of these companies, the brand name. There's a bunch of reasons why. But having one software makes it easier, in theory, to move leads across from one area to another. And that's the part where I think the home services companies in general are trying to get to. I don't think software is necessarily the answer to it, but it might be part of the equation.
Yeah, it might be necessary once you do get enough of that alignment and strategy work. And I guess that's probably one of the things the vendors are pitching because you must have these tech companies coming and saying, hey, we want to be your preferred partner across all your brands. I'm sure that's like relatively common. And maybe one thing to go back to what you said earlier, you don't want to add a ton of change at the franchisee level as soon as frequently, because that's a lot of churn, a lot of thrash. What are there specific areas where it was necessary? Is it the ERP is the primary one, or were there actually other areas where it was less intrusive to have a change as soon as you acquired a brand?
We typically did not change the ERP. Definitely not immediately. Yeah. Sometimes we evaluated it a little bit later on to see was it worth it to change it, especially if it was a smaller brand and it would be less disruptive to change it before you had, when we buy a brand, we try to go and, sell a lot of franchisees after that.
Yep.
If you buy a brand with 10 franchisees, it's easier to change 10 franchisees and then have everyone start on the new ERP. So on the smaller ones, we look at it a little earlier on in the life cycle. With the bigger ones, we would hardly ever even think about it. Maybe we, in our investment thesis, we might say someday, one day, maybe.
Yeah.
But it wasn't an immediate thing. The ones that we were looking to do day of, as I mentioned, it's kind of the nuts and bolts back office stuff.
Yep.
And even IT security too. That's another one where anything that was necessary to make this company seem like it was one of ours, those are the ones that always went first. Beyond that, there was other things we use a training module program. I think it was called Turtle, where we had really good experiences with it. For our other franchises had good experiences with it, and the switching cost was not that high, and we could get some efficiencies maybe on the contract. Maybe, I'm not actually sure, but presumably you could. And for the franchisees, it's they didn't really care, right? They used to log into this portal, now they log into that portal, whatever.
Yeah.
So we try to evaluate things based on, maybe we never did this, but maybe we should have. You put all the softwares on a chart of what's easy versus what's impactful, and you draw a line to say, okay, we're going to take the stuff that's either really easy and not that impactful, and we might not do those right away, but we'll take the really easy and really impactful ones. We'll do that first, and then we'll kind of work over to the
ERP, which is impactful, but this is going to be a giant
really
change.
hard. Yeah, that one's really hard.
And it's interesting because now there's claims of giant efficiencies in certain areas. You take a lot of the AI plays in the home services space now, whether it's customer calls that are being received, things like that. I could imagine that if that actually is driving a ton of efficiency in the business, and it's a pretty big change, but maybe less than ERP still.
Yeah.
How would you think about those?
Yeah, sales and marketing tools like an Avoca or Broccoli or whatever that does the call center, it's definitely easier than the ERP.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is because you're only changing part of the process.
Yeah.
And changing a CRM or ERP, whatever you want to call it, that's the entire business processes. If you're selecting one process and you're like, we're going to change this one process, that's much easier. Now, you can't change all the processes at the same time. So, like back to my chart, it's like, okay, which one is going to be the most impactful first? Because especially after an acquisition, when you're doing integration, franchisees from that acquired company are very wary about who's this big company that just acquired us, what are they going to do? You have to get some quick wins and kind of leave things to the side to build trust that maybe you would do earlier, but not that important to do right now, and like do those later. So we might say, in a hypothetical situation, we might say, wow, we've used this AI call center before, a different company. It was so impactful. Our franchisees love it. We know it's like, relatively easy to roll out to a new brand, and we are confident that our franchisees are going to love it. Our newly acquired franchisees are going to love it. That might be something that would go to the top of the list because it's one process. We have a case study from a different brand where we said, this works. And it would be an immediate trust building mechanism with this new brand that we just acquired.
That then gives you the trust potentially to do even bigger things.
Correct.
Like ERP down the road.
ERP down the road. Yeah.
That's interesting. And I would imagine one of the things that does garner goodwill with the franchisees is anything driving the bottom line. So if you're actually able to significantly improve the cost profile or just get them more customers, you talked about sales and marketing dominating in your area. I assume those are the things that franchisees would want early on.
Yes, rich franchisees are happy franchisees.
Yes, that's very true. How much of it is the brand did something interesting and sent it to you versus you go in and propose something with one brand and then take it to the other brands?
Yeah, franchisees are not shy at all.
On what they want.
Are very, very vocal.
Yeah.
And they will be very clear about their opinion on things en masse. The best franchisors are talking to their franchisees constantly, all the time, right?
Yep.
So you're looking for that two-way feedback where you're saying, this is good for us as a franchisor, this is good for you as a franchisee, and then the data and the numbers don't lie. So if you can look at the numbers and say, this is good for the numbers, you have this trifecta of greatness.
Yeah.
Right? So it depends on the type of software that you're doing, but franchisors love to test things. Because to do a broad rollout to franchisees, it's like, chasing, herding goats or cats or whatever. It's really hard to get however many franchisees you have 100% adoption rate on something, even though contractually you might have the right to do it.
Yeah,
it's hard to do it. You don't want to use the stick before you use the various carrots. So the best way to do it is to do a test. So usually how these things work is one of two ways. The franchisor will find something they like, or a franchisee will find something they like and bring to the franchisor.
Because that's interesting. We see this top-down and bottoms-up approach when tech companies are selling into these businesses. It's can we get quick wins with a few franchisees and then bring that as a broader case study.
Case study elsewhere. Either way, you want a case study. The problem with going to the franchisee directly, if the franchisor doesn't know about it, is that if the franchisor cares, that's a challenge because you might have some friction because the franchisor wants to do one thing, the franchisee is doing it.
Yep.
It's usually better to have the conversation with both of them so everyone's on the same page that you're trying it. Now, there's some things that matter, there's some things that don't. I don't think we would care what payroll system our franchisees use. Maybe we do, but I don't think we do.
Yeah.
But for an ERP, we care heavily what they use.
Yep.
So if you're an ERP system, you go to a franchisee and you say, just try us, right? Franchisor learns that. They're not going to be very happy.
Yeah, that POS we see in other industries, these core systems are so hard
to break in
bottoms up. Yeah.
But if I was a tech company, I would say, I'm going to go to a franchisee, I'm going to get conditional buy-in, and I'm going to tell the franchisee hey, this is great, but I need to talk to your franchisor before we roll this out. I want to make sure we start off with a good relationship with them. Let's get buy-in from them as well too, and then let's go off and test this.
And if anything, you're making it the job easier for the franchisor, because otherwise they have to go get the franchisees and roll it out, but it's just kind of supporting them in easy rollout.
Yeah, the best vendors that franchisors work with are those that understand the franchisee-franchisor relationship, and they know what franchisors care about and what they don't care about. Because ultimately, your key to the bus, the franchise bus, is through the franchisor, and you've got to start that relationship off really strong. And I've seen it where vendors have tried to go around the franchisor and just hit the franchisees directly, and it always doesn't end well.
Yeah,
for really anybody. So I would, if I was a vendor, I'd encourage them to say, yeah, of course, talk to the franchisees, go and see what read the market, see if they're interested.
Get groundswell, etc.
Yeah, but get that kind of conditional approval or conditional buy-in, and then go to the franchisor and say, we have this buy-in, let's do a test. Let us show you the results of the test so we can work together, and then go from there.
And where do you see it? So those are kind of examples also of where it's not been successful, where you've seen vendors come in, try to do something behind the like franchisor's back. Is there anything else that like distinguishes a successful test, like the people you decide to move forward? Of course, it's the results, but like what does successful tests do well that kind of the unsuccessful rollouts miss?
I think it's adding a certain amount of value that is tangible and you can see it. And we'll go back to my hypothetical chart of value add versus how easy it is, right? Impactfulness versus ease. And you need to prove to a franchisor that it is worth their time and focus to roll this test out more broadly.
Yeah.
So, let's just say you're doing something like, oh, I want to change my, let's make something up. I want to change my phone systems, right? How, like the phone system infrastructure. Well, a phone system, it kind of works or it doesn't, right? And like someone coming in and saying, oh, we did this great thing. We saved them $100 a month from, $10,000 they spend. You should roll it out everywhere. We're like, well, there's no incrementality to it.
It doesn't move the needle.
And it doesn't move the needle, and it's not a priority, so we're not going to do it. But if someone came in, I think the call center is a really good example because the AI call centers have been very impressive. An AI call center says, we want to test the franchisee. They come back to the franchisor. They say, hey, we reduced the number of staff that this franchisee needs from 10 CSRs to 2, and our answer and book rate went up 10% in the process of it. We're like, well, that's pretty attractive.
Yeah, costs down, revenue up at the same time.
Exactly, and that could have like real meaningful impact because if you change booking rates, even a 1 or 2% increase in booking rates could have a meaningful impact on the franchisee's health and the franchisor's health because changing 1 or 2% across 200-300 franchisees is meaningful dollars.
And this is the key to unlocking a ton of growth because if you see that in a single franchisee and it rolls across the brand, then you actually have incentive, as we talked about earlier, to roll that across all the brands in the portfolio.
Exactly.
Because you want the quick win. It actually moves the needle for the financials, which the franchisor is still heavily incentivized on the franchisee financials as well.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So that's something like we'll keep picking on the AI call centers, but they're really easy to implement into other brands.
Has there been anything similar to that, or is this kind of like new? Because this is relatively new in the market, these like AI call centers where the impact is actually significantly bigger than, again, not to pick on like training software where it's like, this is like very easy, but probably isn't the same level of impact as like the AI call centers. Can you think of anything else or is this truly a new phenomenon?
There's a couple others I think of. There's a lot on the marketing tech side. I'm not as close to the marketing side of it, so I can't call out specific like verticals in it, but it's a similar thing with marketing. If you can figure out how to reduce your CAC, how to increase conversion rates, how to get better customers faster and like target people who are going to buy, that's hugely impactful to a franchisor system.
And will they, because marketing, I can imagine like the franchisee running ads in their local market. I can imagine there being like national campaigns. It must be kind of complicated, and I know you're less close to it, but how much of that lives with the franchisee versus the franchisor? Like the franchisor should be much more sophisticated on how to run paid ads and do this other stuff. Like where does it live?
It depends a little bit on the franchise system. Generally speaking, franchisors are not ad agencies, but they partner with the ad agencies and they find like who are the best vendors to work with. So for a lot of the marketing side is how do you work with vendors, and then the franchisor's role is to help the franchisee manage those vendors.
Got it.
It would be not impossible, but very hard for a franchisor that has 300 franchisees to like run local paid ads in every single market.
And it is their franchisee's business at the end of the day, right?
Correct.
So like they get to choose how much they want to spend. They might have minimums required or something like that.
Yep,
but
exactly.
That model makes a ton of sense.
The franchisor's job is to help manage vendors, make sure the vendors are performing, help franchisees think through strategy. But 9 times out of 10 with the franchisors, they're not actually doing the marketing. They're outsourcing it to third parties.
Yeah.
There's some exceptions to that, of course, but most franchisors are outsourcing.
We talked about obviously getting more demand, like increasing booking rates, extremely important. But how important is the
staffing? Yeah, staffing's really important. It's such a localized thing, though, that I'll say 2 parts on staffing, right? The first thing is that there are some, as we brought up earlier, there's some regulations and laws that you have to be attentive to, joint employment laws, et cetera. There's some legislation coming that is going to fix that, but for the most part, franchisors have to be conscious of not getting too deep in the weeds on it. So it's really a franchisee-driven exercise. Second part to that is it's super localized. So even if the franchisor wanted to help out, it's a little tough. I've seen there's been some ways of franchisors doing it in the past where they might have like, they call it like a recruiting team, but effectively it's like a screening team where they'll screen people to say like, we're not making a hiring decision, but we are telling you the facts that we believe these people have these 10 things that you're looking for.
Interesting.
Right? They have a license, they have experience, they have, like we're just, kind of screening them. I would say there's a lot of opportunity in the franchise space for working with skilled labor. On the unskilled labor side, there's a lot of companies that have done that. Like, if you are looking to hire cleaners, there's a bunch of, kind of recruiting tech kind of companies that put a QR code somewhere, they fill it out, they do an interview on your phone, like things like that.
Exactly, and that really blew up during COVID as well.
During COVID, exactly. That's when it blew up. On the skilled tech side, it's still hard. It's really hard because you're effectively marketing for these people that might be hard to find.
Yeah.
We've had particular markets that have been really challenging especially in HVAC and plumbing, to find skilled labor. My former company, we were very cautious and conscious about retaining employees and making it so we were a place that people wanted to work, because the best marketing channel that you have to find new employees is through your existing employees.
Yeah, so true.
So, they all know each other from, school or from like gas stations they went to stop at, or, other companies they worked at.
Yeah.
And if you can get your current employees to call up their buddy and say, hey man, you got to come work here. These guys are awesome. They pay really fairly. They treat me well. They got a lot of work. Like, come work here. That's like the best advertising you can get.
Yeah.
But I don't think we worked, or I don't even think I saw like a company that was really focused on the skilled labor recruiting side, specifically on like an end-to-end solution. So
I've definitely seen things that are more on like the training side.
Yeah.
There was such a shortage, and definitely in California, a huge renewable energy push, and then like so many like shortages on the skilled trades. But it is hard with all the local laws and like what you're able to actually do.
We didn't operate in California, so I
Yeah.
can't comment on that one.
For good reason, probably.
That's what I hear. Yeah.
And something you mentioned is retention, and like staff retention. So what
Yeah.
were the like different levers you had available, other than of course like pay? And
Pay.
even within pay, I'm sure there was like something in there that like you thought about. So like, what are all the different things that you considered under like, okay, how can we keep our employees? How can we make them happy? Like,
Yeah, there's two main parts to it. The first one is that you hire great managers. In this industry especially, or this industry being like HVAC and plumbing, we'll pick on those ones, right? These guys could work anywhere, right? They could literally go to the company next door and go work there. It's the same thing, they just put a different uniform on.
Yeah.
Maybe the software, they were all on ServiceTitan anyways, but maybe their way of doing business is a little different, but nothing that you can't learn in like a week or two. So they have a lot of options. But two things is number one, the people that they work for, right? The people they work for is so important. How good are your managers and your general managers that are in the location? You don't know HVAC and plumbing guys want to work for assholes. They want to work for good people that treat them well. And that could just be simple things like they show up in the morning and the guys are there and they're smiling and they got coffee and donuts and they just treat them with respect. Or one of the technicians has a tough time, or maybe a family issue, maybe a whatever issue, and the manager is understanding and accepting and helps them out, right? Like those things go a long way. And then the second is pay. But the reason why I say it's second is because when I had a general manager or manager and there was a really great employee who left us, I'd ask what happened, and they'd say, they got picked up from someone else and they're paying them 20% more and guaranteed bonus and yada yada. My second question was, well, why are they looking in the first place? Right? And that's usually because the manager was, challenging.
Yeah.
But not always. Sometimes you just had people that were at a gas station and a competitor came by, and we had a pretty good manager, so it didn't happen with us. But I know other companies that don't have good managers where you see that all the time. People don't want to work for assholes. The pay side is important too. Of course, you got to pay people like in market. And what we saw on pay was that the locations that made it so there was people got paid more if they perform more was a win-win for everyone. It was a win for the company. It was a win for the employee. If that employee was like a real producer, did a lot of work really efficiently and made customers really happy, we would want them to feel that reward that they are giving the company. We would want them to have a piece of that.
And from their side, it's really about the efficiency because they're rarely responsible for like new leads and generating that themselves.
That's right. Yeah, technicians are, well, I shouldn't say that completely, but technicians, the employees are responsible for getting to the customer's home, telling the customer all the various things that they might need and helping them solve a need. Now, I like to say that every technician is a salesperson. Or they should be a salesperson. No, they don't have to walk into someone's home and say, hey, I'm a salesperson. But they're selling something.
Yeah.
Right? They're either selling, if they're a selling technician, they have to sell new HVAC units. If they're a repair tech, they got to sell why a repair is important. And if they're just like a general service tech, they might be doing just a annual maintenance agreement plan, but they might want to sell a indoor air quality product.
So that's really interesting because that's not their area of expertise though.
No.
So do you guys actually do coaching on that?
We do. Yeah, it's a big thing that a lot of HVAC and plumbing companies are pushing now is sales training for their employees, and it's really important. And again, if you tell a technician that you're a salesperson, they're gonna be like, I'm not a salesperson.
Yeah.
But you don't say it in that language. What you say to them is you're like, you are helping customers solve their needs.
Yeah.
I was on a ride along once with a technician in Florida, and the homeowner, he was talking to the homeowner. He was doing a great job, and the homeowner was he asked do you have any issues with your HVAC or with the temperature in your home? And she said, yeah, like sometimes it gets really hot out, and like this room gets really warm, and I'm not really sure why. And we did the maintenance thing, and then at the end of it, he's like, I'm gonna get my ladder, I'm gonna look in the attic, right? And he gets the ladder, look in the attic, and he realizes that there's not a lot of insulation up there. And he went back to the homeowner and said, well, the reason why that room is warm is because you don't have enough insulation up there. And then that second step is, well, then solve the need. Right?
Yeah.
How do you get that business? Now, in this case,
so true. It's so true. And I think this is like something people miss about sales. Like sales at its best, I say this all the time, is problem solving.
Yeah.
And it's someone who has deep expertise on a way to solve a problem that's helping a customer who doesn't have deep expertise on that. So like in some ways, technicians are like the best example.
For sure. Yeah. You talked about one other software that I think has been very impactful. There's a few that are helping to solve this in one category. It's like the Rillas of the world. Rilla, I think Xero is another one that is integrated with ServiceTitan. But they are softwares that are on a technician's iPad or phone, and they press start, and it records their conversation.
Yeah.
And then it grades them, it scores them based on a certain level of criteria that the employer sets for them. And you can even listen to it in real time. So you can have a sales manager back in the office, like listening to their sales call.
Go up into the attic, get a message. Hey, by the way, you should.
Yeah, you should do this, right? And then, or you can look at it in hindsight. And the sales manager can comment on it and be like, you didn't, you should have done this here. And the really motivated employees that get compensated based on what they produce, who really want to do well, they're looking themselves. They go home at night, they open up their Rilla or whatever it is. If it's ServiceTitan has a product as well too, Sales Pro. They open up those products and they are trying to figure out like, okay, how do I do better, right? How can I take this and how do I do better?
That's very interesting. And have you tried to roll either of these out across the
franchise?
Yeah.
I was involved in rolling it out across our locations that we owned and operated.
Oh, interesting.
Across the franchise, I wasn't as close with these two products as they came when I was on like the corporate side. So I didn't mention this earlier, but Authority Brands has a group of 9 trade-based businesses that are owned and operated by us. And my last stint there, I helped run those 9 businesses.
And just to confirm, is it 100% owned and operated, or did you own like 10%?
100%.
Oh, interesting.
9 locations across the US, and some of them were all 3 HVAC, plumbing, electrical. Some of them were just like HVAC or just electrical. And I was like operating those businesses.
And that might be a good final place to kind of like end. So was that kind of the test center for new products?
It generally was. We would try to have it as a really good case study to say, we're going to try this here, and if it works, we're going to roll it out across the franchise. Not always the case though, right? In the case of the AI call centers. We at the corporate stores were trying Broccoli, and then some of our large franchisees were trying Avoca, and we were going to compare results and figure out which one was better. So, as a corporate location, how we thought about it was we were the largest or one of the largest franchisees. We wanted to act like franchisees and bring new ideas to the franchisor, but also take some ideas from them and test it, and then work as part of the franchise system to ultimately get to the best solution.
Awesome.
The last thing I have for you, and this is more for like the people reading this guide, but like the whole like Rilla, Avoca, like software category was only invented like maybe the last like 5, 6, 7 years. So how did you like first hear about it? Did a salesperson come to you? Did it bubble up through like your various like franchisors, franchisees? Like how did you hear about this like initially?
Yeah, we had a really good procurement team at Authority Brands, and generally they were the ones that would screen, like kind of do a screening on vendors. Or a
that's
marketing
interesting.
team.
So procurement would actually come with new, because often we see procurement as just like the final step to go through, but they would actually source ideas.
Yeah, they would. They would filter ideas to say like, no, yes, and they the operations teams would get involved. But in the case specifically of Rilla, that came through our sourcing team. And when they saw something and they said this could be a really great product that our franchisees would want. Now our sourcing team knew our franchisees. They talked to our franchisees all the time.
Yeah.
So it came through them and they said, hey, operations team, take a look at this. Tell us what you think. On the call center side, similar, but that was with our marketing team. Went through our marketing team originally, which is interesting. It's not really sort of marketing, but it's more like sales.
Yeah.
Sales operation. But it went through our marketing team first, and then hit the right channels eventually as well too.